Hush now, and draw the story cloth closer. We have seen the seed of doubt take root in fertile ground. Now we witness the storm that tests the sapling. When a man stands between the world he was given and the world he believes in, the earth itself holds its breath. This is the telling of the choice that shattered silence, the sacrifice that smelled of smoke and honesty, and the long, hard apprenticeship to a new kind of strength. Let us return to the valley, where a single step from a veranda can shake the foundations of a house. The morning after the new moon ceremony, the air in the house of many windows was thin and brittle. Kojo-Ade requested a private audience with his father in the council chamber, a room lined with the carved masks of stern-faced ancestors. He did not sit, but stood before Kofi's great mahogany desk, his back straight with a resolve that had nothing to do with lineage. "Father," he began, his voice steady, "the drought is a test for the whole valley. I cannot stand by while our ledgers grow fat on the hunger of the hands that fill them. I ask you to open the ancestors' reserve." Kofi's eyes narrowed. He placed his pen down with deliberate slowness. "You ask? You, who has yet to earn a single cowrie in trade, ask me to squander generations of prudence? If a child cries for the moon, give it a piece of roasted yam instead. Your sentiment is the yam. Stick to what you understand." He saw not a principled stand, but a boy's naivete. The lesson of pragmatism, in his view, had to crush the virtue of mercy. Kojo-Ade's request was not just denied, it was dismissed as childish, a verdict that severed the last thread of hope for reform from within. Denied in council, Kojo-Ade turned to action. That very night, under a cloak of darkness as deep as indigo, he and one trusted friend from the stables performed a desperate, sacred theft. They entered the sealed, stone ancestors' granary, a place touched only during near famine. The air inside was cool and dusty, thick with the ghostly scent of old harvests. By the faint light of a shielded lamp, they filled sacks with millet, groundnuts, and dried fish, not for himself, but for distribution. As he touched the reserves, a tremor of awe passed through him. This was not mere food. It was the embodied promise of his forebears to ensure life continued. His act felt less like theft and more like fulfilling the promise's true intent. As they worked, a carved mask of an ancestor in the corner seemed to watch. Kojo-Ade paused, expecting a feeling of wrath. Instead, he felt a peculiar, ancient sadness, as if the wood itself mourned how far the living had strayed from the covenant of community. The wise farmer stores grain for his family, and for the stranger whose granary fire has gone out, the old proverb whispered in his mind. He realized he was not defying his ancestors, but answering a call they had issued long ago, a call his father had chosen to forget. This was his true inheritance, not the gold, but the duty. Before dawn, the stolen sustenance appeared at the thresholds of the hardest-hit huts, Seema's included. There was no note, no claim of credit. It was a silent testament. When the households awoke, a ripple of stunned gratitude moved through the lower valley, mixed with fear. Who had dared? The house's guards were alerted, the locks inspected. The evidence pointed inward. Suspicion, sharp and cold, fell on Kojo-Ade. He was summoned not to the council chamber, but to the family shrine room, a place of ultimate judgment. The air was heavy with the smell of extinguished ritual candles and disappointment. His father's rage was a silent, terrifying tempest. "You have broken the oldest law," Kofi said, his voice trembling not with sadness, but with fury at the violated order. "You have taken from your own blood to give to dirt." Auntie Yes stood beside him, her face a mask of vindicated sorrow. "The goat has not just tended the yams," she hissed. "It has eaten the seed yams. There is no greater betrayal." They saw his act not as compassion, but as a fundamental attack on the family's sovereignty and survival. The cultural belief in the sanctity of the lineage store had been violated, and in their eyes, he was no longer a misguided heir, but a traitor to the blood. The punishment was swift and designed to humiliate him back into compliance. Kojo-Ade was stripped of his duties, his access to the ledgers revoked, his movements confined to the house. A public betrothal ceremony was hastily arranged with Adana, the daughter of the House of the Leopard. The announcement was made in the market square, the drums beating a rhythm of re-established order. Kojo-Ade was forced to stand on the veranda, dressed in finery, as Adana's family presented their lavish dowry: bolts of cloth, chests of cowries, 2 milk cows. He was a statue, his eyes seeing not the spectacle, but searching the crowd below until he found Lela's face. Her expression was unreadable, a pot sealed shut. She watched the transaction, her hands clenched at her sides. She saw not just a man being bound, but a living lesson. When the lion and the goat are said to marry, it is the goat that provides a feast. Any hope that his private defiance could change things evaporated in the public heat of that ceremony. His rebellion had been catalogued, contained, and now was being overwritten by a louder, more traditional story. The house was demonstrating its power to narrate his life, regardless of his heart's truth. Confined and heartsick, Kojo-Ade received a message not written on paper, but delivered in a simple, unglazed clay cup. A kitchen maid, risking much, brought him his evening water in it. The cup was crude, uneven, unmistakably Lela's early work. The very first bowl he had ever attempted to shape under her guidance. It was a message of stunning clarity. She was not saying, "I love you." She was saying, "Remember. Remember the feel of the clay. Remember the humility of creation. Remember the path you saw in the alcove." It was an anchor thrown to him in his gilded prison. That night, he dreamed again. He was back in the water, but now he was beneath the surface, looking up at the lacquered boat of his family. Their faces were blurred, their calls muffled. Beside him, holding his hand, was Lela, and around them were the people of the huts. They were not drowning, they were swimming, moving with a current that flowed toward a great, nurturing baobab tree. The deep drum voice echoed, "A man who knows both the roof and the root will never be homeless." He awoke with the rough texture of the clay cup against his palm, and his choice became irrevocably clear. He would choose the current over the boat. The next market day, as the crowds gathered, Kojo-Ade walked out of the house of many windows for the last time as its heir. He did not sneak away. He walked down the main steps, past the stunned guards, into the heart of the square. He wore simple linen, not silk. In the center, near the old baobab, he stood and raised his voice. The market's chatter died a sudden death. "People of the valley," he called, his voice gaining strength. "I, Kojo-Ade, son of Kofi, renounce my claim to the leadership of the house that would let its children hunger while its granaries are full." A gasp swept through the crowd like a wind. He turned to where the elders of the house had gathered on the terrace, their faces like stone. "My inheritance is not in those ledgers. It is in the strength of your hands, the truth of your labor. From today, I am no longer an heir. I am a man who must learn to earn his bread." He then walked directly to Sima and Lela's stall and knelt, a gesture of profound respect that blurred every social line. "Master Potter Sima," he said, loud enough for all to hear, "will you take on an apprentice?" The silence that followed was absolute, a vacuum before the storm. The fallout was immediate and violent in its coldness. From the terrace, Kofi's voice rang out, stripped of all paternal warmth. "So be it. Let the river take the branch that chooses to rot. From this moment, Kojo-Ade isn't Samankam, a stranger to our hearth. His name is ash in our ledger. Any who aid him share in his disgrace." The pronouncement of disinheritance was a ritual severance, as formal as a funeral rite. The house of scribes would literally scrape his name from the family records. He was now spiritually and legally homeless, his identity unraveled by his own hand. In the hut, the reality was a different kind of shock. Sima looked from the kneeling young man to her daughter's fierce, tear-filled eyes, and then to the hostile, staring market. Her mind raced through practicalities. Another mouth to feed in a drought, the certain wrath of the house, the scorn of neighbors. But she also saw the staggering courage of the act. "The chicken sweats," she muttered, an old saying meaning the effort is hidden, but the feather hides it. This boy had let the whole valley see his sweat. With a sigh that held generations of resilience, she nodded. The kiln does not care what name the clay had before. It only cares if it can withstand the fire. Get up, apprentice. there is work to do. Kojo-Ade's first lesson was in the sheer, bone-deep exhaustion of honest labor. His soft hands, used to holding pens, blistered and split on the gritty clay. The sun, which he had once admired from shaded verandas, now beat upon his neck like a hammer. He learned to haul water from the distant, muddy spring, the weight of the pots making his shoulders scream. The other potters, at first suspicious and distant, watched him struggle in silence. He made mistake after mistake, clay too wet and collapsing, a firing temperature misjudged that ruined a whole batch of pots. His body ached in ways he never knew possible. Lela was a stern but patient teacher. She did not coddle him. "Your back is straight from pride, not from strength," she corrected him at the wheel. "Bend into the work. Let your spine learn the curve of the task." He learned the virtue of perseverance. There was no ledger to mark his progress, only the tangible, often flawed, objects he produced. The satisfaction of a single well-formed water jar that did not leak was a triumph deeper than any academic praise he'd ever received. He was being unmade and remade, not as an heir, but as a maker. The kiln's fire was burning away the lacquer of his old life. Social death was a constant companion. When he went to the well, some women turned their backs, fearing the house's disfavor. Children repeating their parents' whispers, sometimes through pebbles and chanted traitor air. The merchants allied with the house would not sell to him, forcing Seema to trade for their necessities at a disadvantage. At night, in the small, cramped space they made for him in the pottery shed, the loneliness was a physical weight. He missed his mother's silent, sorrowful presence, the familiar smells of his old home, the simple comfort of certainty. Yet, within this hardship, small green shoots of kindness appeared. Old man Akin left a few withered but edible cassavas by the shed door. The fishwife, whose son Kojo-Ade had once helped recover a lost net, sometimes misplaced a small fish in her barter with Seema. These were not acts of charity, but of subtle solidarity, a quiet recognition of his courage. They taught him the true meaning of community, not the enforced unity of the house, but the voluntary, risk-taking bond of shared respect. He was earning a new kind of belonging, one piece of trust at a time. The house, however, was not finished. To punish the valley for Kojo-Ade's choice and to reassert dominance, Kofi's council levied a new stability tax on all the hut dwellers. The reason given: the drought required increased security for the house's assets. It was a blatant, punitive fine. Collectors, armed with clubs and the house's seal, moved from hut to hut, demanding cowries, food, or valuable tools. The air grew thick with a new kind of fear, the fear of systematic breaking. In Seema's compound, they demanded her best firing tongs and a stack of her finest pots, the very tools of their survival. Kojo-Ade stepped forward, his hands still dusty from the wheel. "Take my labor instead," he offered. "I will work on the house's walls, in your fields, for double the hours the value of these things represents." The lead collector spat. "Your labor is worth less than the dirt under my nail. You are in Samancum. You have nothing we want." The confiscation was carried out. As they left, Lela touched his arm, her eyes blazing not with tears, but with a cold fire. "They do not want your labor," she said. "They want your spirit broken. They want you to kneel and beg to return. Do you see the nature of the house you left?" He saw it now, in its raw, coercive cruelty. Lela, bearing the dual burden of love and heightened danger, sought guidance. She journeyed to a cave at the valley's edge where old Neka, a blind seeress, lived. Neka listened to the whirlwind of events, the air's fall, the drought, the tax, her own heart. She threw her divination bones, their click-clack echoing in the dark space. After a long silence, she spoke. "Child, you stand where two rivers meet. One is deep and slow, carved by old mountains, that is tradition, the house. The other is young, fast, coming from a secret spring, that is your love, this new choice. Their meeting makes tumult." She reached out, her gnarled hand finding Lela's. "The ancestors of the earth, the ones before the houses were built, they speak. They say, do not fight the deep river's flow. Dig a new channel for the young one. Let the tumult become irrigation for a new field. The message was cryptic but clear. Direct confrontation with the house's power would be crushed. But a separate, persistent, nurturing action, building something new alongside the old, could eventually change the landscape itself. The virtue required was not rebellion, but resourceful resilience. Inspired by Nneka's words, Lela and Kojo-Ade began to dig their channel. They started a communal plot on a scrap of land gifted by a sympathetic farmer. It was not just a garden, it was a statement. They worked it with others who had been taxed into desperation, pooling scant seeds and scarcer water. Kojo-Ade applied his knowledge of logistics and rotation from estate ledgers, but for a common good. Lela taught companion planting, learned from her mother. They built a small, efficient clay oven from discarded bricks to bake communal bread. It was a tiny, functioning model of a different system, one based on cooperation, not extraction. This act of shared creation began to shift perceptions. People saw Kojo-Ade not as a fallen prince, but as a determined worker. They saw Lela not as a temptress, but as a leader. The proverb, "a single bracelet does not jingle," came to life around the plot. Alone, they were vulnerable. Together, tending this small, defiant green space, they began to jingle with a quiet, collective strength. The house's tax had sought to isolate and impoverish. The communal plot did the opposite. It was a silent, growing rebuttal. The drought deepened its grip. The river Ama gave its last sigh and became a bed of cracked, white mud. Desperation sharpened its teeth. In the house, despite the reserves, anxiety grew. The betrothal to Adana stalled, as her family grew wary of the valley's instability and the house's harshness. Kofi, sensing weakness, doubled down. He sent guards to commandeer the few remaining productive wells near the huts, declaring all water sources property of the house. Water now had a price. This was the final, unbearable twist of the knife. Thirst, more than hunger, breaks the human spirit. At the communal well, now guarded by house staff, a line of hollow-eyed women waited with their empty pots. A guard demanded a cowrie per pot. A young mother, with a parched child on her hip, had nothing. The guard shoved her back. A murmur of anger, hot and dangerous, rippled through the line. This was no longer about grain or taxes. This was about life itself. The valley stood on the razor's edge between despair and revolt. The house, in its drive to control, had ignited a slow-burning fuse. The virtue of justice was no longer an abstract idea. It was a desperate need, as vital as the next drop of water. Kojo-Ade, witnessing the well confrontation, knew a moment of truth had arrived. He could not provide water, but he could provide an alternative. Remembering an old map in the house's library that showed forgotten, deep-rooted vines that could lead to seepage, he led a group of men on a risky journey to a rocky outcrop. Using knowledge from both worlds, the archives of the house and the earth lore of the hut dwellers, they located a damp, shaded crevice. They dug not a well, but a sud, a slow-seep catchment. Lining it with clay, they fired themselves. It yielded only a trickle, enough to wet lips and cool brows, not to fill pots. But its symbolic power was a flood. It was water that belonged to no one and everyone. It was created not by the house's decree, but by communal effort and shared knowledge. People came not just to drink, but to witness this miracle of cooperation. The sud became a pilgrimage site, a proof that they were not helpless. Kojo-Ade had bridged his two educations to create a lifeline. He was no longer an apprentice potter alone. He was becoming a provider in the truest, most humble sense. The house, watching this new power base form around a mudhole and a garden plot, decided on a decisive strike. They declared the communal land and the sud to be on house territory, a dubious claim, and sent a contingent of guards to dismantle the oven and fill in the catchment. This was to be the final demonstration. Any alternative to their authority would be physically erased. The guards marched into the lower valley, their intent clear. The people gathered, a silent, tense wall of bodies around the fruits of their labor. For a long moment, the two forces, the armed enforcers and the unarmed community, stood facing each other, the dry air vibrating with unspoken conflict. Kojo-Ade stepped forward, not with a weapon, but with a single, perfectly fired water jar from his latest batch. He walked up to the lead guard, a man he had known since childhood. He did not plead. He simply said, "This jar holds the hope of this valley. You can break it, but you cannot unmake the hands that formed it, or the spirit that filled it. Will you break it, Kwame?" He held the jar out. The guard, Kwame, looked from the jar to the faces of his own kin in the crowd. His mother, his sister. He saw not rebels, but neighbors. The order to destroy wavered in the face of this simple, powerful question. The standoff was no longer about land or water, but about conscience. The drumbeat is a tense, waiting rhythm now. The guard's hand hesitates over the jar. The valley holds its breath. Will it be shattered or set down? The fire of the kiln has forged a new kind of man, and his quiet stand threatens to unravel an old kind of power. The tale turns on this moment of silent choice. Do not look away.